Let's start with the most common and get increasingly rare. Logical mathematical intelligence, 15% of the world's population. This is the classic IQ intelligence. People with strong logical mathematical intelligence are good at reasoning, recognizing patterns, and logically analyzing problems. They excel in mathematics, programming, and scientific thinking. If you're naturally good at solving complex problems, working with formulas, or enjoy strategy games, you're likely using this form of intelligence. The most famous example is Albert Einstein. Linguistic intelligence, 14.5% of the world's population. This is the ability to effectively use words, whether spoken or written. It includes sensitivity to word meanings, sentence structure, and the sounds of language. Poets, writers, lawyers, and public speakers typically have high linguistic intelligence. If you enjoy storytelling, learning new languages, or find yourself effortlessly explaining complex ideas, you likely excel here. The most famous example is William Shakespeare. Spatial intelligence, 13.5% of the world's population. This is the capacity to think in 3 dimensions. People with strong spatial intelligence can mentally manipulate objects, visualize with the mind's eye, and interpret graphical data. Architects, artists, engineers, and gamers often show strength in this area. If you're good at puzzles, maps, or designing things in your head before building them, spatial intelligence is your domain. The most famous example is Leonardo da Vinci. Musical intelligence, 12.5% of the world's population. This is sensitivity to sounds, rhythms, tones, and music. People with musical intelligence can detect patterns in sounds, remember melodies easily, and often play instruments or compose music. If you find yourself tapping rhythms, recognizing songs from a few notes, or creating playlists with perfect flow, you're using this type. The most famous example is Ludwig van Beethoven. Bodily kinesthetic intelligence, 12% of the world's population. This is the ability to use your whole body or parts of it to solve problems or create products. It includes coordination, dexterity, and timing. Athletes, dancers, surgeons use this form of intelligence. If you're good with your hands, excel in physical activities, or can mimic movements easily, you have high bodily kinesthetic intelligence. The most famous example is Bruce Lee. Interpersonal intelligence, 11.5% of the world's population. This is the capacity to understand and interact effectively with others. People with interpersonal intelligence are skilled at reading emotions, motivations, and intentions of others. Leaders, teachers, therapists, and salespeople tend to score high here. If people often open up to you, or you can read a room without effort, this is one of your strengths. The most famous example is Oprah Winfrey. Intrapersonal intelligence, 10.5% of the world's population. This involves the capacity to understand yourself, your own feelings, motivations, and inner states. It's essential for self-reflection and personal growth. Philosophers, psychologists, and deep thinkers rely on intrapersonal intelligence. If you frequently analyze your own thoughts, keep a journal, or can predict your reactions to events, you likely excel here. The most famous example is Carl Jung. Naturalistic intelligence, 9.5% of the world's population. This is the ability to identify and categorize natural elements like plants, animals, and weather patterns. Farmers, biologists, chefs, and environmentalists use this intelligence. If you love hiking, gardening, or can recognize dozens of dog breeds or cloud types, you probably have a natural inclination for it. The most famous example is Charles Darwin. Emotional intelligence, 8.5% of the world's population. This is the ability to recognize, understand, and manage your own emotions and those of others. It overlaps with interpersonal intelligence but focuses more on emotional regulation and empathy. People with high emotional intelligence can remain calm in tough situations, you can resolve conflicts effectively, and build meaningful relationships. The most famous example is Barack Obama. Practical intelligence, 7.5% of the world's population. This is also known as street smarts. It's the ability to solve everyday problems through experience and common sense. It doesn't always show up on IQ tests, but it's critical in real-world decision-making. If you can fix things around the house, navigate social systems, or know how to make things work with limited resources, this is your type. The most famous example is Richard Branson. Creative intelligence, 6.5% of the world's population. Creative intelligence is about coming up with new ideas, solving problems in novel ways, and seeing possibilities others miss. It can be artistic, entrepreneurial, or scientific. If you often think outside the box, challenge conventional wisdom, or have a million half-baked ideas at once, your brain operates creatively. The most famous example is Steve Jobs. Existential intelligence, 6% of the world's population. This is the ability to think deeply about existence, purpose, and the universe. People with high existential intelligence often ponder life's big questions. Why are we here? What happens after death? Philosophers, spiritual leaders, and thinkers who reflect on human nature use this intelligence regularly. The most famous example is Socrates. Moral intelligence, 5.5% of the world's population. This is the ability to differentiate right from wrong, and to act on ethical principles. It involves integrity, responsibility, and empathy. People with high moral intelligence can make hard decisions for the greater good and tend to be trusted by others. If you care about justice, fairness, or consistently do the right thing even when no one is watching, this one applies to you. The most famous example is Martin Luther King Jr. Digital intelligence. 4.5% of the world's population. This is the ability to navigate, evaluate, and create information using digital technologies. It includes everything from understanding social media algorithms to online security, content creation, and data literacy. In a world where technology is everywhere, digital intelligence is becoming just as important as traditional forms. If you can troubleshoot apps, adapt to new platforms quickly, or create effective digital content, you're likely high in this form of intelligence. The most famous example is Elon Musk. Mechanical intelligence. 4% of the world's population. This is the ability to intuitively understand how machines, tools, and mechanical systems work. People with high mechanical intelligence can take things apart and put them back together, visualize how systems operate, and troubleshoot hardware issues instinctively. It shows up in mechanics, inventors, engineers, and anyone who thrives in hands-on technical work. The most famous example is Henry Ford. Entrepreneurial intelligence. 3.5% of the world's population. Entrepreneurial intelligence is the blend of vision, creativity, risk management, and strategic thinking that allows someone to spot opportunities and turn them into real ventures. It requires resilience, adaptability, and relentless drive. Entrepreneurs, innovators, and even social movement leaders all exhibit this trait. The most famous example is Jeff Bezos. Social media intelligence. 3% of the world's population. This is the skill of leveraging online platforms for influence, branding, and connection. It combines psychological insight, storytelling, trend awareness, and data savviness. People with this intelligence can grow followings, launch viral content, or build communities with precision. The most famous example is Mr. Beast. Tactical intelligence. 2.5% of the world's population. Tactical intelligence is the ability to make effective decisions in fast-paced, high-stakes situations. It requires situational awareness, quick thinking, and predictive judgment. It's common in military leaders, athletes, and first responders. The most famous example is Napoleon Bonaparte. Humor intelligence. 2% of the world's population. Humor intelligence is the ability to understand, create, and deliver humor in ways that resonate. It's timing, wordplay, emotional insight, and sometimes just guts. People high in this intelligence can diffuse tension, unite people, and highlight truth through laughter. The most famous example is Robin Williams. Conflict intelligence. 1.8% of the world's population. Conflict intelligence is about managing disputes constructively. It includes active listening, emotional regulation, empathy, and negotiation. People high in this form often mediate arguments, de-escalate tensions, and maintain harmony in tough environments. The most famous example is Nelson Mandela. Athletic intelligence. 1.6% of the world's population. Athletic intelligence includes not just physical prowess, but also a deep sense of movement, timing, strategy, and coordination. Elite athletes read the game like a chessboard and adapt mid-play with precision. The most famous example is Michael Jordan. Pattern intelligence. 1.4% of the world's population. This is the ability to identify underlying patterns across data, behavior, or nature. It's crucial in fields like math, coding, economics, and strategy. People strong in this intelligence often predict trends or find solutions others miss. The most famous example is Alan Turing. Visual intelligence. 1.2% of the world's population. Visual intelligence is the capacity to interpret, analyze, and create visual information. It shows up in graphic design, filmmaking, art direction, and photography. Those who possess it often communicate ideas more clearly through images than words. The most famous example is Stanley Kubrick. Culinary intelligence. 1% of the world's population. Culinary intelligence combines sensory perception, creativity, timing, and chemistry. Great chefs use this to craft flavor profiles, plate dishes beautifully, and create emotional experiences through food. The most famous example is Gordon Ramsay. Design intelligence. 0.9% of the world's population. This is the ability to combine form and function to create products, experiences, or environments that feel intuitive and beautiful. Memory intelligence. 0.5% of the world's population. Memory intelligence is the ability to store and retrieve large amounts of information quickly and accurately. People with this gift may recall faces, names, historical facts, scripts, or sequences with uncanny precision. The most famous example is chess player Magnus Carlsen. If this video clicked, hit subscribe.